And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a busy day in the sports world on a Thursday evening. We're at, 9:51 Central, so I know it's a late one for you guys, but we just did our first NBA trade deadline live. We're going to have that daily for you guys every day up until the 8th as we prepare for the NBA trade deadline on Thursday next week. So make sure you guys tune in for that. We're going to do that one live every single day, including on the weekends for the next week. So appreciate you guys. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting like and subscribe on the video here and liking that video as well. Follow us over on X at UpsideSN. But the big news of the day in baseball, the Baltimore Orioles finally, and I mean finally, get a real starting pitcher, a real ace for their staff in Corbin Burnes. The trade itself, Corbin Burnes, who has got 1 year left on his deal right now. We'll see if he ultimately agrees to an extension or what ultimately happens there. But the trade itself, Corbin Burnes goes to Baltimore in exchange for a rookie infielder, Joey Ortiz, left-hander D.L. Hall, and a 2024 competitive balance pick in round A. That's going to be number 34 in the upcoming MLB draft. So Ethan Small is also designated for assignment by Milwaukee to make room on the 40-man roster for the trade to go through. So what does this trade do? Let's start on the Milwaukee side first. This one's fairly straightforward. Corbin Burnes was the ace of the staff. Obviously now they're going with a full youth movement right now in Milwaukee. If they catch fire, if they can catch lightning in a bottle, this could be a team that wins the NL Central. There's nobody who's running away with it. There's a ton of teams that could. There's a ton of teams that are going to be very competitive, but who ultimately has the upper hand? Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be significantly better than they have been in recent memory. Milwaukee Brewers are taking a little bit of a step back as far as the veterans that they have on that roster. I'm still not convinced that Adames is going to finish the season on that team. They have like 5 or 6 outfielders that could start for probably 20 teams in the entire league right now, and all of them are very young. Jackson Chourio is going to be on the big league roster this year. D.L. Hall, part of the return that comes over here, figures to slot into that rotation almost immediately. We're seeing kind of an afterthought nowadays in Baltimore with all the young pitching, all the young position player talent that they had. D.L. Hall kind of never really panned out there for Baltimore, but they do give him a second lease on life with the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, remember, I told you guys at the top of the video, Corbin Burnes had 1 year left on his deal and could depart in free agency. They could get a compensation pick back if they ultimately lose him in free agency, which is why the return is a little bit muted here. Brewers decide to go ahead and go with the full youth movement now and capitalize on the certainty of what pick they would get back with the competitive balance pick coming back their way as well. Don't know too much about Joey Ortiz, but as far as the competitive balance pick and DL Hall, I like the return for the Milwaukee Brewers. Now for the fun side of this trade, what does this do for Baltimore? Well, like I said, they get a bona fide ace at the front of this rotation. I know they have some good starting pitchers. They are just good starting pitchers, let's be clear. I don't believe any of them could win them for certain a playoff game. Could they keep them competitive in games 2, 3, and 4? Absolutely. Could they steal you a victory in games 2, 3, or 4? But absolutely. But none of them are you going to look at and say, hey, he takes the ball in game 2. I don't care if it's Jacob deGrom in his peak performance, Jacob deGrom on the other side of the mound. We're winning this game. And none of those pitchers right now in that Baltimore staff are anywhere close to the level that Corbin Burnes brings to this team. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to say, hey, what are you talking about? We had a good year from Bradish. Rodriguez is going to be fantastic. What are you talking about? I'm sorry. Did we not watch that entire team get blown up in the postseason? I understand it was 2 games against the Texas Rangers, but we're talking about a team that we knew at the trade deadline needed to improve their rotation. The move that they made was a stopgap piece in Flaherty, who ultimately did not pitch for them as a starter in the postseason, ultimately struggled down the stretch for them, got into the playoff game late as a replacement, or out of the bullpen anyway, when they were just trying to get some mop-up time. But ultimately, that Baltimore Orioles team just looked, let's call it what it is, they looked rough in that starting pitching department. If they just had somebody who could limit Texas to even 4 runs, just 4 over 5 innings, they probably would have won a game and at least made the series competitive. They may have even won it. They didn't have anybody like that on their roster, and Corbin Burnes is exactly what that team needs. A bona fide ace, somebody they can point to and say, hey, today's win day, boys. Let's go out there and win one. That's exactly what Corbin Burnes brings. He also is a losing streak stopper. You lose 4 straight games. Oh, guess what? You have Corbin Burnes on the mound. I guess our losing streak is over. They couldn't have said that with anybody else on their pitching staff. I understand they have faith in their player on their team. I understand that they all have talent. I understand that they all had decent years last year. But none of them are guys that strike fear into the hearts of any opposing hitter. Corbin Burnes, Cy Young Award winner, absolutely dominant pitcher, strikeout rate and all that. He is exactly what you need at the front of a rotation for a postseason team. Now, the Orioles get the job done. They were long rumored to be in the market for Dylan Cease. They ultimately decided to go the Corbin Burnes route. Honestly, I love Corbin Burnes, the pitcher. I was hoping he would go to Texas, my favorite team. I thought he would have been a great get. The money would have been fine for Texas because it's a 1-year deal. They could have auctioned off a couple of their pieces that they didn't have room for on their major league roster anyway, and that would have solved the issue with Jordan Montgomery and the money, the long-term fit, all the TV money issues, all those kinds of things. Corbin Burnes is a phenomenal pitcher. He brings a level of competitiveness. He brings a level of success at the major league level that is unlike most pitchers in the entire major leagues. Now, you look at Dylan Cease. He's a great pitcher, don't get me wrong, but I'm starting to have some worry about whether or not Dylan Cease was just a flash in the pan. I mean, we saw last year was, a 4.5 ERA. He did not look good. Watched him get blown up time after time after time, and it could have been something off with his mechanics. Could have been just the year in Chicago. But we're talking about a guy that is young enough and advanced enough in his career that he shouldn't be having these big swings as far as production from 1 year to the next. He's 2 years left until free agency. He's going to be making big-time money. It's going to cost you a huge amount of prospects to be able to get him from the White Sox. Just the acquisition cost alone is not worth it if I am the Baltimore Orioles, if I'm the Texas Rangers, if I'm the LA Dodgers. Honestly, I just don't see where the White Sox are going to be able to get the asking price that they're looking for. We saw the Atlanta Braves, Alex Anthopoulos, say at the Fan Fest that they just had the other day that they really tried to get Dylan Cease anyway, but the acquisition cost was just way too freaking high. And so that's why they bowed out. Now, the Braves, of course, have nowhere near the farm system that they used to. They're still a very good team. They're still going to have a great pitching staff. They were a little bit thin until the acquisition of Chris Sale. In fact, I still think they could probably add one or two minor league contracts, invites to spring training that could be a long reliever out of the bullpen or a spot starter at times. But I think their rotation is better served after the acquisition of Chris Sale rather than the cost of going after Dylan Cease. I mean, that farm system in Atlanta is pretty much gutted. There's not much left. It would have taken pretty much the last bits of everything that's there to get the deal done. So Corbin Burnes, absolutely phenomenal pitcher. Absolutely love the acquisition for Baltimore. Baltimore is certainly in the headlines over the last couple days. First, the team gets sold, $1.7 billion. Cal Ripken's coming back in. He's going to be a part of that ownership group. Their team is very young. Adley Rutschman's there, of course, MVP-type player. They have Jackson Holliday coming in soon. They're going to be a fantastic team. And if Gunnar Henderson can figure out things consistently at the plate, this team is going to be a behemoth for years. If they can get Corbin Burnes now signed long-term, they have the rotation ace right now on that pitching staff. If Grayson Rodriguez continues to figure things out at the major league level and the rest of their starters continue to post similar years to what they did this year, that's a very good team in a very difficult American League East. You'd have to argue that they would be one of the favorites to win that division, possibly even a World Series favorite after the acquisition of Corbin Burnes. Now, do I think their work is done? I honestly do at this point in the offseason. I don't think they're going to get too much more. I don't think they're going to go out there and get Dylan Cease at this point. I do think the acquisition of Corbin Burnes kind of quiets those things down, at least until the trade deadline, where if some of those starters start to back up, like I'm expecting some of that regression a little bit after having such a successful year, if Grayson Rodriguez doesn't take the next step, then at the trade deadline they could revisit the Dylan Cease talks if he hasn't moved yet. But as of right now, I don't think the White Sox are going to have, or the Orioles are going to have the wherewithal to go out there and make a move for a Dylan Cease. But Corbin Burnes goes to Baltimore. Great deal. Absolutely love it. Love it for both sides, honestly. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised it didn't cost just a pinch more. The 1 year left on the deal, I think, is the impetus for why the trade got done. I think it's also the reason why the return was so little, even with the competitive balance bit coming back, DL Hall, and a good rookie infielder as well. But Milwaukee trying to go with a full youth movement. Remember, just when everybody thought Josh Hader was finally going to stay in Milwaukee for forever, nobody was looking for a Josh Hader trade after years of speculation that he would get moved. The year that everybody said, the Milwaukee Brewers, they're never going to trade him. Let's move on to the other targets here at the deadline and see what's going on with them. Boom! That's when we get the Josh Hader trade. Just this offseason, after everybody's finally starting to put the rumors of Corbin Burnes being moved to bed, they're saying, the Brewers are trying to compete. They're going to try to leave him at the head of the rotation, trade him at the deadline if things aren't working out. Boom! We get to trade Corbin Burnes to the Baltimore Orioles. So keep your eyes peeled. It's going to be a crazy next couple of weeks anyway. Remember, Blake Snell is on the market. You have Jordan Montgomery still out there, Matt Chapman, Cody Bellinger. There's still some good free agents out there. There's also the Dylan Cease trade talks that seem to be ongoing forever and ever if they decide to move him at all before the season. You have all the teams like the Dodgers going out there and spending money. The Yankees went out there and got Soto, the guy they really wanted to solve their offensive issues. I still don't see the solve yet on the pitching side, which is why I still think Blake Snell might be an outside candidate to go to the Bronx. We'll see what happens there. But appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you guys join us again tomorrow evening. We'll be starting again a little bit later because of our NBA trade deadline live that we're going to hopefully start a little bit earlier tomorrow. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll have a Corbin Burnes video breakdown coming out for you guys tomorrow. Appreciate a ton of you guys who are subscribing and joining us here at the Upside with all of our Super Bowl content that we are posting as well. Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, goes to the Washington Commanders. Looks like Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, is getting a 6-year deal to be the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of news in all four major sports. Had a huge hockey trade. Elias Lindholm going to Vancouver from the Calgary Flames for a huge package there. NHL trade deadline is in March. We'll have that one for you as well. It's a great time to be a sports fan right now, so we appreciate if you wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe on the video. And remember, if you guys want to check out that NBA chat that we had just before this one, breaking down what to look for at the trade deadline, feel free to check that one out, like the video, and remember, follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and congratulations, Baltimore. Your team's got sold. You got a nice Bit of news with Cal Ripken Jr. coming back, and now you get a frontline starter for a postseason series in Corbin Burnes. Congratulations to that front office for finally getting that team an ace that they so desperately needed. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.